Good morning. Welcome to Scholar IAS Current Affairs classes. Today we are going to look into January 20th current affairs. So the first issue is with respect to deepfake. This particular topic is relevant in mains GS3 technology part. And recently we have seen that there is a great chaos in Capitol Hill, USA. And deepfake had played a very big part in spreading the disinformation, which had resulted in chaos. So what is deepfake technology? Deepfake technology is nothing but usage of artificial intelligence to produce synthetic media that is deceptive in nature. Those are all not real videos or real images. These are all fake images, but they appear real. That is the problem with deepfake. They even have the potential to even alter the electoral outcomes. That is the potential of deepfake. So why is deepfake a bigger problem? One important issue with respect to deepfake is that it can show real people doing or saying something that they have never did. Second, these videos and audio or images is very hard to detect it as fake. Any person who views it will see it as original, and they will never realize that it is a fake video or a fake image. Second, it can depict unreal activities of real people. Either they can show the real people doing certain things that they have never did, or they can also depict unreal activities of the real people. Also, that these deepfake technologies are used to tarnish the reputation, create mistrust, question facts, and spread propaganda. As a result, it also creates riot-like situations like what we had seen in Capitol Hill in USA, and also that deepfake can target anyone, anywhere. So what is the India's efforts to counter cybercrime? Some provisions in IPC criminalizes certain forms of online or social media content manipulation, and IT Act 2000 covers certain cybercrimes related to manipulation of content. Social media companies voluntarily agreed to take preventive violations during 2019 general elections. This is one of the initiative taken by the private social media companies. Election commissions during the elections, they have issued instructions on social media as to what to use and how to use and what not to use. All these things they have really instructed. And in 2018, government really proposed rules to curtail the misuse of social networks, and these are all the efforts with respect to countering such content manipulation using deepfake technologies. But overall, when you look at these provisions in law, there is no specific law which can counter this deepfake technology. That is the problem, because this particular technology is of emergent nature. It is only arriving in recent years. So it is high time that the government recognizes the perils of this particular deepfake technology and institutes a specific law or specific regulation to deal with deepfakes. So what is the inadequacy? As I have said, in India there is no specific law banning deepfakes. Even the IT Intermediary Guidelines Amendment Rules 2018 are inadequate to deal with the content manipulation on digital medias. So these are the problems that we are facing with respect to regulation of these deepfakes. What we need to do to counter these deepfakes? So basically we need to have a technological intervention. We need to build AI tools to detect the deepfakes. Also, we need to educate media users, social media users and other forms of media users about the capabilities of AI algorithm and about the misdeeds that are spread by the deepfakes. Countering deepfake is a collaborative multi-stakeholder response that requires experts in every field. That, as I've said, building AI tools require proper computer engineers, and educating media users require proper focused government policy initiatives. And policymakers must understand that how deepfake can threaten polity, society, economy, and culture, and act as per it, so that they can devise policies and regulations to counter these deepfakes. So what is the second issue? Second issue is with respect to RERA. This is nothing but Real Estate Regulation and Development Act has instituted Real Estate Regulation Authority. This particular Real Estate Regulation and Development Act has enacted to regulate the real estate sector in India, and this particular topic is relevant in mains GS2 governance part. Basically, real estate have been hitherto unregulated sector before the emergence of this act, and This act for the first time tries to infuse certain type of governance and regulation in the real estate sector. What are the provisions of RERA? No project can be sold without project plans being approved by the competent authority. All the projects should be registered with competent authority if it crosses a specific threshold. Once this registration is done, a separate bank account have to be opened, and the money which is collected for this particular project have to go into this separate bank account, and this money cannot be used or diverted to any other avenues. Fourth, the mandatory disclosure of the unit size should be based on the carpet area. So mostly these real estate companies won't disclose the carpet area, and finally the customers will be cheated because they would be in the advertisements there would be different area specified, and then the final carpet area they receive is very less. So to avoid these misconceptions, mandatory disclosure of unit sizes based on carpet area have been instituted. Provision for payment of equal rate of interest by the promoters or the buyers in case of default. This is also provided to safeguard the buyer's interest. So what are the positives? Along with demonetization and GST, RERA has cleansed the real estate sector of the black money. Second, because of the separate bank account maintained for each project and the rules of not diverting this money to any other project, the project gets completed very fast and there is no diversion of funds elsewhere. It also reduces unfair trade practices with respect to disclosing of the carpet area, and it also restricts or puts an end to the deceitful advertisements because of the registration requirements. In registration requirements, each and every detail is collected. As a result, the consumer is fully aware of what the project is, how much area is allocated, what is the money required, and who are all the people who have invested in the project. All these things they have asked in the registration details, and the consumer will know the information. Before the enactment of RERA in 2016, there was another bill in 2013 which was different from the RERA that is now present. So what is the 2013 bill was having? The previous bill on RERA had several shortcomings. First shortcoming is that it covered neither ongoing projects or commercial real estate projects. Second, threshold for registration was very high. As a result, many projects escaped from the coverage of law. So this is not the case with the new law, which has provided minimum threshold amount beyond which registration is mandatory. So all these problems in 2013 Act is rectified by the new law. Also that this RERA Act promotes cooperative federalism because under the law certain rules are given to the state governments. State governments have the power to enact certain rules under the act. Also, regulatory authorities and appellate tribunals are to be appointed by the state governments. As a result, the overall aspect of the law is provided by the central government, and the rules under it is the power of the state government. So the conclusion is that RERA has emerged as a real proper regulator for the real estate sector. Like SEBI for the security market, RERA is for the real estate sector. The history of urban India or of the real estate sector will be remembered as two phases. One is pre-RERA and the post-RERA. So that is the credibility of the regulatory institution RERA in the recent years. Third topic is with respect to missing manual scavengers of India. This particular topic is important in mains GS2 social justice part. The state and the society needs to take active interest in the issues related to manual scavenging, and all possible options have to be assessed accurately, and then certain solutions have to be devised to alleviate the problems of the manual scavenging. So before going into the issue of manual scavenging, we need to look into the estimate. In 2008, the official estimate says that there are 7,70,000 manual scavengers. In 2011, Safai Karmachari Andolan has estimated that there are 12 lakh manual scavengers. In 2018, National Safai Karmacharis Finance Development Corporation found that there are only 87,000 or 88,000 manual scavengers. If we had looked at within this 7 years of span, 2011 to 2018, literally there is 90% reduction in the manual scavengers. So this particular estimate is seen as totally an underrated estimate, because 89,000 from 12 lakh is totally irrational. What is the shortcomings in the survey? As we have seen, there is 90% reduction in the number of manual scavenging, which means that there could be some error in the survey. So let us look into what is the real problem in the survey. This particular survey, which is taken in 2018, it only surveys 14 statutory towns. So by only surveying 14 statutory towns, it comes to an underestimation of only 89,000 manual scavengers in India. On top of that, by providing for survey only to 14 statutory towns, it indicates that the manual scavenging is only present in the urban areas, which is a false perception. Manual scavenging is also present in the rural areas, which we will see in the following slides. So before going into this, let us look into the interventions that the government has instituted to deal with the manual scavenging. The Self-Employment Scheme for Liberation and Rehabilitation of Scavengers was set up in 2007 with an objective of rehabilitating them and their dependents. So what are the provisions of this particular scheme? This particular scheme provides one-time cash assistance of 40,000 to one member of the family of the identified manual scavengers. Also that they provide loans, common projects. A monthly stipend of 3,000 to up to 2 years, and access to skill training programs is being given. So like this, there are a lot of provisions in this scheme, and the basic objective is to make this manual scavengers come out of this particular occupation and then provide further rehabilitation of them. Second intervention is with respect to legislation, where in 2013 the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Act was enacted in 2013. So this particular law provides for elimination of insanitary latrines, rehabilitation of manual scavengers, and if a worker dies, employer need to provide compensation of 10 lakh to the family. Even if the worker dies with the proper kits, doesn't matter, worker have to be compensated by the employer. So third important initiative by the government is Swachh Bharat Mission. This Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is started in 2014, and its aim is to really do away with these dry latrines, and it has introduced new designs like twin pit, septic tank with soak pit, single pit. All these designs have been introduced for toilet constructions so that the open defecation will be curbed. Fourth is Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge. This Safai Mitra Suraksha Challenge aims to completely mechanize all septic and sewage tank cleaning operations by 2021. So these are the initiatives that the Government of India had taken. Now let's look at the shortcomings of these initiatives. So what are the shortcomings of these initiatives? As per the reports of the Parliamentary Standing Committee in 2017 and 18, only 27,000 manual scavengers have been provided with one-time cash assistance in SRM. So in Swachh Bharat Mission, out of the three designs that I have already told, this particular soak pit design and the single pit design has certain problem. What is the problem is that this particular designs, we need some human effort to clean this particular toilets. So as a result, Swachh Bharat Mission, though it addresses the defecation, open defecation problem, it is not addressing the problem of problems faced by the manual scavengers in both urban and rural areas. Third, not a single FIR was filed in 2014, so which means that this particular law which has been enacted to contain this manual scavenging problems, to make to punish people who are employing manual scavengers, it is not working out, because this particular 57th Standing Committee of Social Justice and Empowerment says that there is no single FIR in 2014. As per the National Commission of Safai Karmacharis, 608 manual scavengers have died between 2013 and 2017. This also explains the failure of the law and the enforcement of the law. So these are all the important news that is important in January 20th current affairs. For more videos, please log on to www.scholar.com. Thank you.